Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we are looking at the ultimate architectural blueprint for stability, America's presidential succession plan. When you think about the most powerful office in the world, your focus is probably right on the person sitting behind the resolute desk. But beneath that visible layer of leadership, there's this massive fail-safe mechanism just humming away in the background. It's literally designed to ensure the engine of the country never stops running, no matter what happens to the driver. It's a deeply complex system of laws, protocols, and secure communications, and I am so pumped to unpack exactly how this whole shebang works with you today.
So I want you to imagine, just for a second, waking up tomorrow morning to some truly shocking breaking news. The President of the United States is abruptly unable to serve. Your mind probably immediately races with questions, right? Like, who actually takes command? The stakes here are unfathomably high. Global financial markets, they're on a hair trigger, ready to panic. Foreign adversaries are watching closely, searching for even a tiny window of weakness or hesitation. Could the government actually keep functioning, or would chaos just completely take over? It's a terrifying prospect, for sure. Honestly, it sounds exactly like the opening scenes of a Hollywood blockbuster. But what would actually happen in the real world?
Well, while it might sound like a movie script, the reality is far more structured and tightly controlled. The United States government has actually spent decades building, refining, and testing a massive blueprint to make sure leadership continues without a single hiccup. This isn't something they just leave to chance or figure out in the heat of the moment. No way. The concept of continuity of government is a massive cornerstone of national security. We're talking highly classified protocols, secure, undisclosed locations, and shadow systems operating quietly in the background at all times. It's basically an absolute guarantee that there is always someone clearly in charge, preventing any dangerous power vacuums from ever forming.
This incredible plan didn't just emerge out of thin air either. It was forged by the harsh, unyielding lessons of history. Over the decades, the government was basically forced to confront these worst-case scenarios. I mean, think about the sheer paranoia and existential threat of the Cold War, sudden, tragic assassinations, and massive national emergencies. Every single time the nation faced an incredible moment of stress, leadership realized that the ultimate goal in any crisis has to be absolute stability. They had to assume the absolute worst could happen at literally any second. And in response, they engineered a backup plan that is completely immune to confusion, panic, or debate.
So, how exactly do they guarantee that stability? Let's relieve some of that initial tension and look at the actual procedural mechanics. Because honestly, they are truly fascinating. It all comes down to the presidential line of succession. Now, this isn't merely a set of guidelines or friendly suggestions. These are the rigid rules of the game, strictly defined by federal law and the United States Constitution. By design, it's a deeply mathematical, emotionless process. By removing human emotion and political maneuvering from the equation entirely, the law literally takes the guesswork out of a crisis. It replaces potential panic with cold, hard procedural clarity.
We can walk right down this hierarchy of power. Immediately, step 1 is the vice president. Makes sense, right? If the VP is unavailable, step 2 goes to the Speaker of the House, followed by step 3, the President pro tempore of the Senate. From there, it moves right into the cabinet secretaries, starting with the Secretary of State. And there's actually a super fascinating reason for this specific order. The cabinet succession is based entirely on the historical dates those departments were established, like a giant historical puzzle. Plus, to ensure this entire line isn't wiped out in a single catastrophic event, there's the designated survivor. That's a cabinet member kept in a secure, undisclosed location during massive gatherings like the State of the Union, just waiting in the wings. It creates a crystal clear, absolutely undeniable chain of command.
But knowing who is in charge is really only half the battle. Think about the immediate, ticking clock aftermath of a crisis. What actually happens in the very first hour? This is the critical window where panic could easily set in if things aren't locked down tight. We're talking about tens of thousands of federal employees, massive intelligence networks, and a global military footprint all reacting at once. How do all these massive branches of government coordinate their actions in those crucial first 60 minutes? Because the transition of power isn't just about handing over a fancy title. It's about shifting the levers of an impossibly massive machine and doing it seamlessly.
Let's break down this timeline. At minute 1, security agencies immediately respond to secure the situation and establish a protective perimeter. While they lock down the physical space, by minute 15, the White House communications team and staff are already coordinating the transition of power and securing communication lines. By minute 30, the military has locked in and maintained its rigid command structure, just awaiting orders from the new commander-in-chief. And incredibly, by minute 60, federal agencies are continuing normal operations across the entire country. It takes this terrifying, abstract concept of a crisis and turns it into a highly tangible, synchronized sequence of events. The sheer speed of this response completely neutralizes panic before it can even start. Now, we definitely have to address the elephant in the room, the military, and specifically the nuclear command system. In a moment of extreme crisis, maintaining lawful military command is absolutely paramount. A really tangible example of this continuous command is the nuclear football, the president's emergency satchel. This isn't just some ceremonial symbol. It's a physical, mobile command center that literally travels everywhere the president goes. If power transfers, control of that satchel and the launch codes within it transfers instantly. The system is designed with incredible precision to ensure that authority over the military never, ever wavers. It is steady, it is authoritative, and the chain of command moves to the successor without missing a single beat.
It is so easy to buy into the Hollywood version of chaos, isn't it? The sensational claims that a sudden leadership vacuum leads to rogue generals, fractured military factions, and absolute panic in the streets. But the reality is firmly anchored in constitutional safeguards. The procedures in place deliberately prevent that kind of cinematic disaster. Lawful military command is maintained precisely because the rules are already written, rehearsed, and understood by every single person in uniform. The military swears an oath to the Constitution, not to an individual person. That means the structural integrity of the command survives completely intact, no matter who steps into the role.
Now, you might be listening to all of this and thinking, okay, this is a great theoretical framework, but would it actually hold up when the unimaginable happens? Because let's be real, a plan on paper is only as good as its ability to survive a real-world catastrophe. Well, we don't actually have to guess. We just need to look at historical reality to prove that this constitutional framework isn't just some theory sitting on a shelf gathering dust. It has been violently stress-tested in the real world, under some of the darkest circumstances this nation has ever faced.
Consider the sudden and tragic assassination of President John F. Kennedy, or the attempted assassination of President Ronald Reagan. These were distinct, horrifying national traumas. In those moments, the entire world essentially stood still. Yet in both instances, the system responded exactly as designed. Just hours after JFK's assassination, Lyndon B. Johnson was sworn in aboard Air Force One. That delivered a vivid, unforgettable image to the world that the system was working. The Constitution provided the immediate answer, and the succession worked seamlessly in practice. The government did not fall, the chain of command held incredibly firm.
Ultimately, this whole thing boils down to one guiding principle. America's emergency succession plan isn't designed for politics, it's designed for stability. Regardless of who is in office, which political party holds power, or what unexpected, unprecedented crisis occurs, federal law provides a clear, completely impartial path for leadership to continue. The continuity of the republic simply supersedes any individual agenda. The government keeps functioning so the nation can keep breathing. It is a brilliant, emotionless mechanism designed to protect the country and its citizens above absolutely everything else.
Which brings us to our final thought for this explainer. We live in a highly unpredictable world, a place where crises can erupt globally or domestically without a single moment's notice. In the face of all that uncertainty, isn't it deeply comforting to know the blueprint for stability is already written? When you really understand the underlying structure and the meticulous planning behind it, that fear of chaos just kind of disappears. The system is built to endure. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. I hope you found it as fascinating as I do.